The humid air of Manila, Philippines, was the only world Amelia Santos had ever known. She was 25 years old, a college graduate, a degree in business administration. Like many others, she wanted more than survival. She wanted mobility, stability, a future that extended beyond borders. Her goal was simple: use her education to access opportunity in a global economy. On an ordinary afternoon in April, that opportunity appeared to arrive. An email. The sender identified itself as Global Hospitality Solutions. The message was formal, professional. It offered Amelia a position in Chicago, Illinois. Monthly salary, $6,000. The weeks leading up to that email had followed a reassuring pattern. Online interviews, scheduled calls. A man introducing himself as Marcus Thorne. He spoke clearly, confidently. He presented himself as a company representative. Amelia did what she believed was due diligence. She researched the company, verified the hotel's online presence, reviewed the documents. Everything appeared legitimate. A digital contract followed, detailed, structured, signed. 2 weeks later, in late April, Amelia boarded a flight, Manila to Chicago. She carried her suitcase, her documents, and the expectation that her life was about to change. At O'Hare International Airport, someone was waiting. He introduced himself as Boris Volkov. The meeting lasted only moments. Almost immediately, he took her passport, her visa, all of her documents. He told her it was procedure. What followed was not. The car did not head toward the hotel listed in her contract. Instead, it drove into a deteriorating neighborhood, a residential building, a locked door. Later that same day, another man arrived. He called himself Victor Zhang. It was then that the truth was delivered. There was no job. There was no hotel. Amelia Santos, he said, now owed $50,000. A debt, for recruitment, for travel, for housing. And until it was paid, she belonged to them. The apartment door closed. It locked. In a matter of hours, a legitimate job offer had collapsed into captivity. And Amelia Santos understood. She had not been recruited. She had been trafficked.
The system that pulled Amelia Santos in was not improvised. It was built carefully, layer by layer. Global Hospitality Solutions presented itself as a legitimate international recruitment agency. The website looked professional, clean design, corporate language. There were testimonials, stories from successful candidates who claimed their lives had changed. Logos of well-known hotel chains were displayed prominently, suggesting official partnerships. None of it was real. Amelia's primary point of contact was a man calling himself Marcus Thorne. He understood exactly how trust is built. The interviews were conducted online, video calls, scheduled, structured. Thorne appeared calm, polished. Behind him, a virtual background showed a sleek office, glass walls, city skyline, executive decor. Everything signaled legitimacy. He spoke about Amelia's qualifications, her degree, her potential. He told her she was an ideal fit for an assistant manager position at a 5-star hotel in downtown Chicago. He focused on reassurance. Visa processing would be handled, airfare covered, temporary housing arranged. Every concern she raised was already answered. Every hesitation was neutralized. Amelia checked what she could. She searched the company online. She searched the hotel. Both existed. What she could not see was that neither had anything to do with the people recruiting her. The employment contract arrived next, long, detailed, corporate in tone. It looked like every real job offer she had ever seen. This is how trafficking works, not through chaos, but through aspiration. For Amelia, the offer was not about luxury. It was about movement, about helping her family, about a future that finally opened outward. $6,000 a month was not excess. It was transformation. What was presented as opportunity was in reality a gateway into debt bondage, a system designed to convert hope into control. By the time the digital world collapsed, the physical one had already closed around her. The promise that carried Amelia Santos across the world was never meant to be fulfilled. It was meant to trap her.
The trafficking network that trapped Amelia Santos was not a single monster. It was a system. Each person had a role. Each role served control. Amelia Santos, the victim who observed. Amelia Santos was 25 years old, a business administration graduate from Manila, educated, motivated, focused on helping her family. Before she left the Philippines, she was defined by ambition and responsibility. After arriving in Chicago, those traits were targeted. Her identity was stripped down methodically. Sleep deprivation, intimidation, isolation. But something remained intact. Amelia watched. Even under constant threat, she began to memorize details, faces, accents, routines, names spoken too casually. She tracked locations in her head, counted doors, noted who carried keys. This was not resistance in motion, it was resistance in silence. Later forensic interviews would show how deliberate this was. Amelia was not waiting to be rescued, she was preparing evidence. Marcus Thorne, the recruiter. Marcus Thorne never touched Amelia. He didn't need to. His job was persuasion. He was the voice on the screen, the calm face in the interview. Digital forensic analysis later showed how carefully his persona was built. Professional language, controlled tone, virtual office backgrounds designed to project authority. He spoke like a hiring manager, validated her education, praised her potential. His strength was not force, it was legitimacy. Thorne understood aspiration. He knew how to turn hope into compliance. By the time Amelia boarded the plane, his work was already finished. Boris Volkov, the enforcer. Boris Volkov was the moment the illusion ended. He met Amelia at O'Hare and within minutes took her passport. That single act shifted everything. Volkov's role was simple: transport and terror. He moved victims. He enforced rules. When obedience wavered, violence followed. Witness testimony later described how he beat another captive, Svetlana Petrova, not in private, but in front of others. The message was unmistakable. This is what happens when you resist. Fear was his currency. Victor Zhang, the architect. Victor Zhang ran the operation, quietly, clinically. He was the one who explained the debt, $50,000, a number chosen not to be repaid, but to be permanent. Zhang coordinated everything: recruitment, transport, confinement, exploitation. He rarely raised his voice. He didn't need to. His control came from structure, rules, consequences, and the illusion of inevitability. To him, people were inventory. Amelia was a line item. What Zhang did not account for was memory, observation, and a victim who was quietly mapping the system from the inside. The network would not fall quickly, but it would fall because one person refused to disappear.
The trafficking operation followed a system, not chaos, not impulse, a process, step by step. Phase 1, recruitment. It began quietly. An email, an ordinary afternoon in April. The sender called itself Global Hospitality Solutions. The offer was precise. A job in Chicago, $6,000 a month. Not random. Victims were pre-selected, educated, English-speaking, degrees in business, hospitality, or management. People with ambition. People with something to lose. For Amelia Santos, this wasn't just a job. It was a future. Phase 2, validation. Next came the interviews. Marcus Thorne appeared on screen, calm, polished, confident. Behind him, a corporate office. Clean lines, glass walls. All virtual. Thorne's tone never pressured. He reassured, complimented. You're exactly what we're looking for. Every doubt was neutralized before it could fully form. The network anticipated skepticism, so they built confirmation into the trap. a professional website, hotel names that actually existed, logos that looked real. Amelia checked. Everything seemed to align. Then came the contract. Long, formal, legally styled. Once signed, the illusion was complete. Phase 3. Transit. 2 weeks later, Amelia boarded a plane, Manila to Chicago. This was the point of no return. She carried clothes, documents, expectations. She landed believing she was employed. That belief lasted minutes. Phase 4. Seizure of control. At O'Hare, she met Boris Volkov. He didn't introduce himself. He took her passport, immediately. That single act changed her legal existence. No ID, no autonomy, no escape. She was driven through the city, not to a hotel, but to a decaying apartment in a forgotten neighborhood. Disorientation was intentional. Phase 5. Debt bondage. Inside the apartment, Victor Zhang waited. He spoke plainly. There was no job. There never had been. Then he named the number. $50,000. A debt she did not agree to. A debt she could never repay. Travel, paperwork, processing fees, all fiction. The door locked behind her. In that moment, Amelia Santos ceased to be a candidate. She became inventory. From recruitment to confinement, every step had been planned. The email was the hook. The contract was the leash. The debt was the cage. And once inside, the system did not rely on hope anymore. It relied on fear.
It happened on a cold October morning. After nearly 6 months of captivity, 6 months of control, fear, and abuse, Amelia Santos saw something she hadn't seen in a long time: an opening. Boris Volkov made a mistake. He left her alone. The vehicle was still running, parked at the curb, engine idling. Volkov escorted another woman, Svetlana Petrova, into an unidentified building. Amelia understood instantly. This window would not reopen. She didn't hesitate. She opened the door and ran. No plan, no direction, just movement. She fled through unfamiliar streets, cold air cutting her lungs, every step driven by survival. Eventually, she saw lights, a convenience store. She went inside. The first witness. Behind the counter was the owner, Eleanor Vance. She noticed it immediately. Amelia's appearance, her shaking hands, her injuries. This was not confusion. This was trauma. Eleanor didn't ask questions. She picked up the phone and called 911. Law enforcement response. Officers arrived within minutes. They assessed the scene. Amelia's condition, her fragmented but urgent account. This was not a routine call. Protocols shifted. Human trafficking indicators were present. Amelia was removed from the location and taken to a secure, undisclosed site. Her safety came first. Then the investigation began. The FBI was notified. The case was transferred to federal jurisdiction. Agent Evelyn Reed was assigned as lead investigator, turning survival into evidence. In the days that followed, Amelia Santos was debriefed, carefully, methodically. An interpreter was present, every detail documented. Despite prolonged trauma, Amelia remembered faces, names, addresses. She identified the apartment, the routes, the buildings where she had been taken. Patterns emerged, transportation methods, control tactics, operational routines, what she had done in captivity, observing, memorizing, surviving, now became intelligence. Her testimony wasn't just a story, it was a map. And with it, the trafficking network had made its final mistake. They let one victim walk out alive, and she brought the entire system with her. The intelligence Amelia Santos provided changed everything. It transformed a single escape into a federal case. Agent Evelyn Reed from the FBI's Human Trafficking Unit took control of the investigation, and the first priority was verification. Surveillance begins. Amelia had given them something rare, an address, a real place. Within hours, FBI surveillance teams were deployed. Unmarked vehicles, covert cameras, long hours of quiet observation. The apartment building Amelia described was placed under continuous watch. What agents saw confirmed her story. Victor Zhang, Boris Volkov. Both men appeared repeatedly, coming and going at irregular hours. Women were brought in. Women were taken out, always under control. never freely. The patterns were unmistakable. This was not coincidence. This was an operation. Following the digital trail. While physical surveillance continued, another team went to work behind screens. Global Hospitality Solutions, Marcus Thorne. The FBI traced domain registrations, IP addresses, communication metadata. The result was clear. The company was a shell. The recruiter was a ghost. Servers routed through multiple countries, encrypted messaging platforms, a deliberately fragmented digital footprint. But it wasn't invisible. It was organized, and that made it traceable. Money tells the truth. Financial analysts followed the money. Shell companies, wire transfers, cash movements designed to avoid detection. The flow led back to Zhang and to Volkov. The structure pointed to a larger enterprise, not a single crime, but a system. Human beings reduced to revenue. Every financial record, every surveillance log, every digital trace was cross-checked against Amelia's testimony. She hadn't exaggerated. If anything, she had understated the scale. The takedown. By mid-November, the evidence was sufficient. Probable cause was established. A plan was approved. At dawn, federal agents moved in. Multiple locations. Simultaneous entry. The apartment Amelia had escaped from was one of them. Victor Zhang was arrested. Boris Volkov was taken into custody. Other operatives were detained. Inside the locations, agents found them. 7 women, alive. Among them were Svetlana Petrova and Sofia Ramirez. Their conditions confirmed everything. This was trafficking, forced confinement, debt bondage. The raid dismantled a functioning human trafficking cell operating in Chicago. But it began with one woman, one escape, one decision to run. Amelia Santos didn't just survive, she ended the operation.
The arrests marked the end of the operation, but they were only the beginning of the case. Federal prosecution. In the weeks that followed, the United States Department of Justice formally charged Victor Zhang, Boris Volkov, and multiple co-conspirators. This was not a simple trial. It was a federal trafficking case built piece by piece. At the center of it all stood Amelia Santos. The weight of testimony. When Amelia took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. She spoke calmly, deliberately. She described the recruitment email, the video interviews, the promises. She explained how her passport was taken within minutes of arriving in Chicago, how a $50,000 debt was invented and imposed on her life, how refusal was not an option. Her testimony was not emotional, it was precise. Names, addresses, dates, methods. And she was not alone. 6 other women testified, including Svetlana Petrova, including Sofia Ramirez. Different lives, different countries, the same system, the same pattern. Together, their accounts formed a single narrative, organized, repeatable, deliberate. The evidence speaks. The prosecution supported the testimony with documentation. Surveillance footage showing the movements in and out of the apartment. Financial records tracing illicit profits through shell companies and cash transfers. Digital forensic evidence linking recruitment communications to the trafficking network. Physical evidence recovered during the raids. Individually, each piece mattered. Together, they were overwhelming. Verdict and sentencing. Victor Zhang was identified as the architect, the man who designed the debt bondage system and controlled the operation. He was charged with sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion, and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. Boris Volkov faced similar charges, with added emphasis on violence and enforcement. After deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all major counts. The sentencing reflected the scale of the crimes. Victor Zhang was sentenced to life in federal prison. Boris Volkov received 30 years. The court made its position clear. This was not exploitation by chance. It was trafficking by design. Aftermath. The network was dismantled. The operation ended. For Amelia Santos, the outcome meant survival and the chance to rebuild. She was granted a special visa for victims of violent crime and entered a long-term rehabilitation program, counseling, medical care, support services. Her future was no longer controlled by debt, or fear, or locked doors. She had escaped, and in doing so,
She brought the entire system down.
The case of Amelia Santos stands as a clear example of how modern human trafficking operates, not through chaos, but through structure, planning, and deception. It reveals how criminal networks exploit technology, economic disparity, and human aspiration, how legitimacy is fabricated, how trust is engineered, and how control is imposed step by step, long before physical confinement ever begins. This case also demonstrates something equally important, that meticulous investigation matters, that victim testimony, when taken seriously and handled with precision, becomes powerful intelligence, and that coordinated law enforcement efforts can dismantle even deeply entrenched criminal enterprises. Amelia's journey followed a brutal arc, from targeted recruitment to forced exploitation to survival. But her role did not end with escape. Her willingness to testify, clearly, consistently, and at great personal cost, was instrumental in bringing down an entire trafficking operation. The convictions were not secured by chance. They were built on her memory, her observations, and her refusal to remain silent. Years later, Amelia Santos did something few survivors are able to do. She rebuilt. She learned English. She earned a university degree in social work. And in 2018, she founded Hope's Light organization. The nonprofit provides legal aid, psychological counseling, and reintegration support for survivors of human trafficking, resources Amelia herself once needed and nearly did not survive without. Her life now serves as both a warning and a counter-narrative, a warning about how easily exploitation can hide behind opportunity, and a counterpoint to the idea that trafficking only produces victims. Amelia Santos is proof that survival can become resistance, and that even within systems designed to erase identity, truth, when preserved, documented, and spoken, can dismantle power.